A body of men, whether a business, whether a government, whether a shadowy cabal, holding themselves accountable to nobody, ought not be trusted by anybody. Thomas Paine. Quick poll. How many people out there would agree with that statement? Do you think it's important that we hold ourselves accountable and we make sure that others hold themselves accountable? Personal responsibility is not only recognizing the errors of our own ways, personal responsibility lies in our willingness and ability to correct those errors individually and collectively. We also need to accept that sometimes we make decisions that are bad, that perhaps others encouraged us to, that are still our own fault, and we need to accept that whatever comes from that is ours to accept. Now, a lot of people have come to the challenge that, Florida Maki, you have a very strange take on this whole Epstein thing. It is an accepted fact that he is the world's worst pedophile and that Ghislaine Maxwell, here pictured with him, she's just as bad and all this. I don't buy this for 1 second. And neither should anyone from Gen X or older. Now, is what he did moral and good and righteous? No. But what happened is not what the story being reported is. And it absolves a lot of people of personal responsibility. You see, if this had happened in our era, back in the 80s, these girls would have been held accountable for their actions. They would have not been seen or treated as children like they are now. This is a result of the Me Too movement. Don't believe me? Are you already typing? Are you already upset? Here's a fun fact. You ready for this? 19 states in our country still allow, quote unquote, children, translate those who cannot consent, to be charged with prostitution. Now, Florida is not one of those places. Neither is most of the South, excluding Louisiana and Texas. But just chew on that, and if you think I'm lying about this, look it up. Ask your Grok, ask your Siri, ask your whatever. But this is the case. If a child cannot consent, how in the world first can they drive a car, being 15, 16, 17 years old? If they cannot consent, how can they be charged with a crime? How can you commit a crime to something you can't even consent to? You see, this is a vestige. This is a vestige of when we held people accountable and we didn't accept this ridiculous notion that in a 1-day-old and somebody who's 17 years and 364 and a half days are the same thing. It's something that we've covered over the Patreon channel extensively. It's a form of mass psychosis that the world is now living under, and they can't see base logic. They can't see facts. And breaking news alert, 2, not 1, 2 brand new videos up over at the Florida Maki Patreon channel. These are for the unit commanders and the brigade commanders, level. That's the top 2 over there. And believe me, it's not for the faint of heart. If you're an emotionally driven person and you enjoy that fact, you're not going to like the Florida Maki Patreon channel. Because we show what we can reveal about our country and about this world absent emotion. And it's a fascinating black and white difference. Everything being believed right now by the vast majority of people online, they believe that because they feel a certain way about it. Now, there's 4 levels over there, and if you're like, Florida Maki, I'm not sure if I want to pull the trigger with the pledge, it's fully refundable. Fully refundable, first 90 days, no questions asked. We've had a lot of people go over there and stick around for a month, stick around for 3 months, and then gosh, having some trouble, maybe I'll let it go for a while, and they come back. That's perfectly fine. Some people have come and gone multiple times. Love to have you over there. Believe me, the information is something that you'll value. How many of you have heard of what is called a Darwin Award? It's this idea that the stupid and the inane and people who just don't have enough brains to protect their own lives will eventually self-select themselves out of living. Here's a great picture. There's a alligator creeping up here. Two guys laying on the ground taking selfies. Girl above taking selfies. Not realizing how fast these animals are. Here's, of course, a real popular one from way back. Guy holding up a bear cub and behind him his mom, thinking he has the ability to drop the cub and run in time. But St. Anthony the Abbot said that this would happen. The days are coming when men will go mad, and when they meet a man who has kept his senses, they will rise up against him saying, "You are mad, because you are not like us." You see, let me cover this one more time, just real quick. The actual story is this woman went out and approached girls, not children, girls, young women, and made them an offer, and didn't really make any bones about what the offer entailed. And then those girls were given an opportunity to make a decision. And looking back, they probably looked back at that decision, and it was a poor one. It wasn't a good decision. But they did not make the decision as children. They made the decision as what the law would say in 19 states were those of an adult mind. Oregon, Idaho, Arizona, Alaska, Hawaii, Texas, Louisiana, Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, South Dakota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Virginia, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, and Massachusetts all agree. Now, if the U.S. is so divided on this concept of whether a child can or cannot consent to committing a crime, imagine what the rest of the world might be thinking. When we don't even have enough civility in our own cities now to get by day to day without there being National Guard forces sent in. It does prove something, though. It does prove that if the U.S. government really, really, really wanted there not to be any drug use or abuse in this country, there wouldn't be. But what do we know about criminals? They don't obey laws. Let me posit this question. The U.S., this is the accepted fact, even from the Trump administration, that we are the beacon of light in the world, that we are to be leading in the ideas of what a civilization should be, and moreover, democracy. We are the bastion of democracy in the world, right? Doesn't that mean one man, one vote? That the majority rules? Mr. Trump has said multiple times, the landslide election, that he won all those electors and won the popular vote. Okay. Fantastic. You know what we should do? Let's put it to a popular global vote. Let's put it to a popular global vote as to whether these two did something wrong or not. See, I don't think anybody would want that. Because in a good portion of South America, all of Africa, all of the Islamic world, India, and most of Asia, what went on with Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell is not a crime. If we put it to a global vote, they'd walk easily, not being charged with any crime at all. In most of Indonesia and Africa and the Middle East, India, prostitution's perfectly legal, and there's really no age limit on it. There are some places where they actually recognize what a child is as a child, and they don't use some random number. But if it was just up to what we would call the West or the civilized world, the 360 million people living in North America and perhaps a good portion of Europe and some small portion of South America, we'd be outvoted 3, maybe 4-1. I wonder what global democracy would say about the random missiles being fired at boats in the middle of the Caribbean Sea. Some are saying, Florida Marquis, are you talking about the drug boats off of Venezuela? Yeah, and I'm also talking about the lack of education in America, too. You see, here's roughly the northern coast of Venezuela, right here. Here's Florida, over here, upper left. The distance between where these boats are being shot out of the water and the United States is about 1,000 nautical miles. Now, fun fact, see this little boat? This little boat cannot possibly be carrying enough fuel to reach U.S. waters. So to make the allegation that the boat off the northern coast of Venezuela is directly headed for U.S. waters is inane and stupid in the extreme. For those of you who don't understand how these boats work, that type of a boat is maybe getting 2 miles to the gallon at that rate of travel. I doubt they're even getting that. That's about what the boats get, 2 to 4 miles per gallon. So they would need anywhere from 300 to 500 gallons minimum to get from Venezuela all the way to Florida. And that boat's not big enough to carry that. The tank of fuel alone is bigger than the boat. But we really know what this is about. We really know what this is about. Capitalism. The astonishing belief that the nastiest motives of the nastiest men, somehow or other, the rising tide lifts all ships, work for the best results of the best of all possible worlds for everyone. Where riches hold the dominion of the heart, God has lost his authority. And at the end here, I'd like to share something. I truly would. You know, there's a couple other scriptures. No man can serve two masters. 8 theories why fentanyl deaths are plummeting. Now, this goes right along with the Darwin Awards. One of these theories is that most of the hardcore users have offed themselves already. People talk about all these hundreds of thousands of deaths. Yes, of people using street drugs that are being sold by gangs. Nobody is going to Burger King in the morning and grabbing their their sausage, egg, and cheese biscuit and their hash browns, and oh no, this person died of the fentanyl poisoning that was in their hash browns. That is not what it is. Nobody's going to Starbucks and getting a coffee and, oh, it's accidentally laced with fentanyl, and that's why we need to fight fentanyl. The people that are taking fentanyl are just like the girls. Just like the girls, making poor choices. You see, ladies out there from my era, help me out here. Back in 1986, if you were out with a group of girls, let's say at the mall, and some older woman approached you and said, hey, down over here in the really nice section of town, there's this old guy. And he's just got piles of money laying everywhere. And, I've got a car fit all of you. How about we all go over there and he just wants to, he just needs a massage from young girls. And boy, he's willing to pay and he'll give you enough money to come back here to the mall and you can buy whatever you want. How many of you would have said, you know what? Gosh, that sounds like a great idea. Why don't we all just hop into this car with this random lady that we don't know anything about, and we're going to go drive over to somewhere where we don't really know truly, and then we're going to go into this house with some strange old man. Maybe it's one man, maybe it's 20, who knows? And then we're going to do that for mall money. How many of you ladies back in the 80s would have really been dumb enough to do that? But let's get to this. Let's get to these 8 reasons. You're going to love this about why nationwide deaths are plummeting precipitously. 30,000 fewer people a year are dying. And this started back in 23 under Biden. One of the big things is Narcan you can now get over the counter. So the drug addicts can go get something that if they happen to overdose or a friend happens to overdose, they can save their lives. This is what the cops were using. I think that's a big one. Weaker fentanyl. Street fentanyl is incredibly potent, but in many parts of the U.S., organizations that test fentanyl doses sold by drug dealers, often in pill form, have found a significant drop in purity. No one's sure why drug cartels have changed their mixtures. Money. Some researchers believe law enforcement pressure. No, it's money. A dangerous but less lethal street drug supply. Most of the U.S. gangs are selling complicated cocktails of street drugs, and the amount of fentanyl they're putting in them is less. But they're adding in metamine and xylazine. Much more highly toxic, but not as deadly. Better public health, blah, blah, blah. Here we go. Number 5. Many of the Darwin Award winners have already died. Over the past 5 years, the U.S. has been losing roughly 110,000 people to fatal drug overdoses every year. So what's that, 500,000? That sounds about right. 550,000? They just didn't live through it. Waning effect of COVID pandemic. People are just finally getting over their depression. People are getting better and not overdosing because they're handling the drug in a much more seasoned way. And young people aren't using it as much anymore. Why? The threat of death. The threat of death. People are actually dying from it. See, that's the whole concept. Recognizing the threat of death. Recognizing the threat of death. Some people aren't smart enough to do it. See, back in the 1980s, look, we had groups of really hot, smoking hot girls back then too. But they also had half a brain in their head. Very few would probably have taken the old woman up on her offer to go hop into her Jeep or SUV or station wagon at the time, whatever hell, and gone truck over somewhere to give some old guy some massage. They just wouldn't have done it. It's just called the risk-reward analysis. And what does it boil down to? Personal responsibility. We're not teaching this anymore. When we start saying that, Jeffrey Epstein this and Ghislaine Maxwell that, and then we want to see the list of all of these other people who are responsible and all this bullshit, nobody looks at what the real problem was. The real problem was there was a group of teenage girls who just didn't have a brain in their head. Not saying what they did was right, but that's not the problem, folks. I can tell you right now about this whole fentanyl thing. And back me up out there, folks. I can tell you this right now. You could have put a fentanyl dealer. You could have put a fentanyl dealer on every corner between my house and my school. And I wouldn't have taken any of them up on it. Because there were drug dealers back then too. Dealing crap that could kill you. If somebody did partake in something and they ended up ODing, it was their fault. It was their fault. High school or not. And there's proof here in old laws. That old laws that allowed, giant air quotes, children, read young adults, teenagers, to be held accountable for their actions. I'll give you this link and you can read it. And like I said, you can Google it yourself. So, once again, mass psychosis. If you'd like the breakdown on this and why it works, the emotions behind it, psychological operations tactics, love to have you. Two brand new videos over at the Florida Monkey Patreon channel. Thank you guys so much for being there. I very, very much appreciate it. God bless. Pray for each other. Pray for me. I'll pray for you. Lift each other up. Like, share, subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.